All right, so if you are feeling a little bit nervous or overwhelmed about the Halloween candy situation, this is for you. So I hope you can connect with me live. It's been a while since I've done IGTV Live, so if you're joining me, I would love to just hear from you and hear where you're watching from. And let me know if you can hear me okay. Hopefully you can. If we haven't met yet, my name is Crystal. I'm a registered dietitian and mama of 5, and just on a mission to help you make peace with food in your family so that you can enjoy freedom with food together with your kids, with your loved ones. And, it's that time of year where sugar and candy and sweets and all the things is just so highly demonized because there's more of it and there's more exposure to it. And I know as parents that this can just bring up a lot of angst and a little bit of overwhelm and stress. And if you're feeling that as a parent, I would love to just hear from you. Like, tell me what's coming up for you. What are you worried about when it comes to Halloween candy and your kiddos? I am going to share 3 tips with you today just to help you begin to normalize candy in your home now before Halloween even gets here. And then after I share that, I'd love to answer any questions that you might have. So feel free to post any questions in the chat. And hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I don't even know if my thing is working right, but I'm just going to go with it. So I think oftentimes with holidays, especially Halloween or any like candy-centered holiday, there can be kind of this unconscious desire to kind of pull in the reins and control what our kids are exposed to because there's just more of everything, right? Like you go to the store, you go to Target, Trader Joe's, it's like all the fun festivities when it comes to food and candy and sweets and all the things. So it can be really overwhelming as a parent when you're encountered with all of this. And I think a natural reaction is to want to try to find something that you can control. And so, there may be some unconscious effort to kind of like not restrict, but just kind of like restrain what your kids are exposed to. And yes, this will be available later. Hopefully, if I'm recording and doing everything right, it will be on my feed after we're all done today. So anyway, all that to say, I want you to be encouraged in knowing that this is normal. If you're feeling stressed about the higher flux of sweets and candy and all the things, you're not alone. You're absolutely not alone. First of all, diet culture highly demonizes sugar in our society. And I think as parents, we're kind of stuck in this hard place of, wanting to raise up healthy kids, but then also dealing with all the conflicting messages that we're getting as parents when it comes to sweets and sugar. And so it leaves us in this hard place. Like, what do we do? How do we approach this? And again, a natural tendency can be to limit the sweets and things that our kids do have access to. However, this can just make things worse, right? Like when kids know that sweets are available and around, they might be seeing it at school. They might be going to the store with you and seeing that there's different things available. Like I just went to Target recently with a couple of my kids and, it's like the huge Halloween display and it's just like aisles of candy and you better believe like kids are aware of that and they see that. And so, we want to be intentional and proactive about making those things part of our home and our routine and actually incorporating them into the foods that our kids are already having. And I think sometimes there's this idea that we have to wait until Halloween is actually here, right? Like we have to kind of hold things as much as possible and contain them as much as possible because we know there's going to be 1 to many days of our kids being exposed to a high influx of candy and, that might make you nervous. And so you might be restraining yourself a little bit or restraining your kids when it comes to access that they have to sweets. And so I just want to encourage you to take some steps to normalize sweets in your home now. You don't have to wait until Halloween. In fact, I think when we wait, it just like creates more anticipation and buildup and kind of anxiety sometimes in our kids when they're wondering like, okay, when am I finally going to get access to all the things that I already see and that I know are available? And so we want to be intentional about bringing them in our home now, like taking steps to normalize those things now. And so I'm going to give you 3 tips and ways that you can do that. So the first tip is to just make it accessible today. And I know I've kind of already said this a little bit, but if there's things that your kids are eyeing or seeing or asking for, be proactive in incorporating those things today. Again, you don't have to wait for Halloween to actually get here to start doing those things. For example, at Trader Joe's, where we live, we have Trader Joe's and they always have so many fun, festive things for the holidays. And they have these, like, they're Oreos, but they have a little Halloween kind of cutout face on them and the inside cream is orange. And my kids get so excited about these every year. Like they love them. And so I'm really intentional about buying those things as soon as I see them in the store. I think they started coming in like maybe mid-September. So I started buying them, even though it's not officially like Halloween. We started having them with meals. I started putting them in their lunches to go to school. So, whatever that you see that your kid is showing an interest in, and just knowing that, there is a higher influx of sweets right now, and your child is likely being exposed to more candy and sweets because of the season, the holiday season that we're in. So it really is important to allow more frequent opportunities for your child to have access to those sweets when they're being exposed to them at a higher frequency. So I know that can feel really backwards and counterintuitive because often our knee-jerk reaction to a higher influx of sweets is to want to try to control it and restrain it and limit access to them, but it's actually the opposite. So it's like the more your kids are getting access or seeing these sweets or, again, it's just more exposure to them because of the season that we're in, you want to actually offer them more frequently. So we've been having sweets or candy or some kind of Halloween cookie, whatever, like pretty frequently in our home, multiple times a day. And I know when I share that can surprise people. It's like, aren't you a dietitian? Aren't you supposed to be limiting sweets? But I just find that when my kids are aware that it is accessible and it's out there and we don't take intentional steps to incorporate it into our home, then they just become more obsessive about it. Versus if you're intentional about bringing it in and saying, okay, why not buy a bag of Halloween candy already? We don't have to wait until Halloween actually gets here and start having it with our meals and snacks. And even if you're incorporating it multiple times a day, that's okay. You're basically normalizing it for your child. So it's not this like huge thing when Halloween actually gets here. So taking intentional steps to making it accessible in your home, whatever that looks like for you, can be really powerful in normalizing candy in your home before Halloween. So that's my first tip. Tip number 2 is to call it by name, whatever that sweet might be. So what I mean by this is sometimes we categorize different foods. Not sometimes, like pretty often. I think it's easy to do that. And again, diet culture takes that approach to food to kind of segregate different things. And, by default, it can create a hierarchy around food. So what I mean is, for example, with sweets, and I'm just using these terms for the sake of this video, but we tend to refer to like candy or any type of dessert. We kind of lump it into certain categories like sweets or treats, even like things like junk food, processed food, whatever that label might be. It's easy to label food like that, especially sweets. And when you look at it from your child's perspective, when we categorize food like that, it kind of elevates it above other things. Like, for example, think about the word treat, right? Like, who wouldn't want a treat? A treat sounds like so enticing and exciting, right? Like something like really special. And so when we categorize sweets like candy, like when we label it things like treat or sweet or even things like junk food, that can attach certain values to it, right? And again, if we're working on normalizing these foods in our home, the goal of normalizing them is to help our kids learn how to self-regulate what feels best in their bodies, then we want to take a more neutral approach to how we talk about it. So instead of categorizing it or labeling it, I want to encourage you to just call it by its name, whatever it is. So even candy, I really don't like to lump it into candy. I just call it by whatever the candy name is. So like lollipops, gummy bears, cookies, Tootsie Rolls, like whatever. Like you get the idea. But there can be something really powerful about just calling something by its name of what it is versus lumping it into a category or a label. And again, that can really help just kind of normalize it in your child's mind and not attach any type of value or label to it. So that's my second tip. I hope that helps. And if you're watching and if you have any questions about anything that I'm chatting about, feel free to put any questions in the comments and I'll be happy to address those for you. Okay, so my last tip here is to model eating it and enjoying it with your kids. So I think sometimes as parents, we might give our kids permission to eat certain foods, but we might not necessarily model that it's okay for them to eat those foods. And our kids are really smart. Kids are so smart. They pick up on our energy. They pick up on, our body language, and they're kind of watching to see how we approach different foods. Okay, and sorry, I have one of my kids home, so I'm probably going to have a little guest in here soon. So, what we want to do is just model enjoying it, because if you're letting your child eat a candy or something, but then they see you kind of like watching them, or, you're kind of nervous around them while they're eating it, or while they're eating their candy or their sweets or whatever it is, they're going to kind of pick up on that. So in order to help normalize sweets, try modeling eating it and enjoying it with your kids too. And I know this can be really hard and easier said than done. But there's something really powerful when we can not just give our kids permission to eat certain foods, but also give ourselves permission to eat those foods too, and to enjoy them with our kids, and to not be bogged down with food guilt. Because that guilt that we might be carrying can easily be projected onto our kids when they're eating certain foods that we might not be comfortable with. So just be aware of what you're feeling, what's coming up for you, as you give your kids permission to eat these foods. And that can be really powerful in normalizing candy in your home, especially as we get into this holiday season. So those are my tips for you, and I hope that helps. I do want to share that I have a free virtual workshop coming up next week on Thursday. I can't remember the exact date. I think it's the 28th. And I'm going to be diving into all kinds of strategies to help you support your kids in learning how to self-regulate candy and sweets, especially around Halloween. So I'd love for you to join me. It's completely free. I will be teaching live and answering any questions that you have. It will be recorded too. So yeah. My daughter just walked in, sorry. So I'd love for you to join. There is a link in my bio where you can sign up, and I would love to just give you some guidance and support and strategies to help you navigate this season, because I know it can be more challenging, and I don't want diet culture to steal the joy that should be part of your holiday. And you deserve to experience that freedom with food as a family and with your kids. And to be able to share that with your children can be so powerful and really support you on your journey in terms of raising intuitive eaters. So that's it. I know that was a lot of information, but if I can help answer any questions for you, feel free to leave them in the comments. I am going to be trying to come on Instagram Live more often. So if you have any topics or topic suggestions that you'd like me to address on an upcoming live, let me know too. I'd love to hear from you. All right. Thank you so much for watching and joining. Have a good day. Bye, guys.